Bringing us is the last chapter, correct? The last chapter of the book, Thought and Life. We have been studying the book through the year, and no doubt it was just a teasing for us to read it if we haven't do so. So that could be a Christmas gift for ourselves to get the book and to read it during this time. With no further ado, Leito, it's all yours.
Oh, go ahead. Good evening, everyone. We'll wait for the teenagers to... We'll take that over here. Welcome to our last session of this amazing book, Thought and Life, that we embarked on the beautiful journey back in, we started when? January, right? January, February, now that I'm trying to remember. It's a journey, and it's a journey of, working, trying to understand what Emmanuel brings to us through these 30 chapters. And personally, a sense of accomplishment on reading another book. But I cannot tell you that I have mastered everything that we have learned. Just a note from the teacher to, when I say teacher, the one who's presenting to everyone else, because I still also have to put into practice a lot of what we have read together, what we have shared here, the things that we have read along with the book as well, so we understand Emmanuel's ideals with this book. And tonight is no different. Closing the book with the topic of love, it's hard. It's not easy. And it's one of those subjective ideas that, everyone have a saying about love, or sees and feels and share loves in a different way. So I can't promise you that you will get out of here tonight loving more or being loved more, right? But all that we can do is to perhaps share some of the tools and some of the examples that Emmanuel brings to us about love, on how to love, on how to become more lovable, right? And it's not easy. The only thing that I can say that when we study this chapter is the assurance that each one of us, we are in the right path. And we already love. We can do more, but we are on the right path. And that is an amazing thought, because we have our doubts of what love is, of what, to express love, how to receive and how to be open for love, which is something that we need to work on. But for sure, we're on the right path. And otherwise, we wouldn't be here. This is another reassurance for all of us that we are on the right path. So stay put, bear with me as we embark on this journey, right? Before we get into the whole study about love, which is the last chapter, we see that we went through all these chapters. Chapter 1, the mirror of life, our mind, right? It's important that we remind one another that we connect with one another through thought. We emanate and we receive. It's a constant exchange, and it impacts us more than we think, more than we can even bear to think. Because if we really go deep into the thought, it becomes scary at first. But then you're like, wow, I really have the power to change my surroundings. I really have the power also to stop any negative influence, or when I say stop, to mold the negative influence that we have with one another. And I think this is one of the key elements of this chapter, love, that we will learn together is that we have this capability. Interesting enough, as we were reading the book Happy Life to prepare for the talk this past week, throughout this week, please forgive me, I don't remember the chapter now, but one of the things that Joanna de Angelis reminds us through the book Happy Life is that we are not past buyers of the universe. We are it. We are part of it. And if we take this standby position of, oh, okay, you know what, something's happening over there. You know, I don't care. It's not my problem. It's wrong. We have our will. We can cooperate. We can instruct. We need to be instructed. We can educate. We need to be educated. We need to work, right? We have all these things that we do day in, day out. And sometimes we take for granted these tools that we have, the capabilities that we have here and here to make a difference in our lives. And it's right there. And the reminder was like, wow. You know, obviously it wasn't by chance that I opened randomly in the book and read that passage before I started working on some of the parts of the talk tonight. But it is so true that with our thoughts, with our feelings, we can mold what comes towards us. And we can be more proactive of what we are letting out. We're putting out there, projecting towards others. So here are the some of the topics that we talk about. We saw how important it is the credo, how important it is the family, how we fit in the family, right? And what is our position in the family as well, whether when we obviously reincarnated on earth with the family, and then we grow and we then part to establish a new family. Children, the body, our health, our vocations, right? And the profession. There's two different things there. Some of you may remember some of the amazing topics that we discussed during these chapters, as well as society, prosperity, habit, duty, guilt, how guilt really pushes us down, and we are not able to evolve as fast as other ones that perhaps don't have this feeling of guilt. Assistance, humility, tolerance, prayer, obsession, illness, and death. And now, love. I want to remind everyone of perhaps the question that I posed the last session, session number 10. Does anybody remember the question that I posed before we part? Obviously not, because it was 2 months ago. So I will help you guys. The question was, bring to mind or connect with something that you love, because that brings us joy, right? Something that we love, something that is appealing to us. And it can be something material. That's okay. Remember, we're all in the right path. So there's no wrong or right answers. But also to connect with something that you are learning to love. Now here comes the challenge, right? Learning to love. Because whether you like or not, guess what? One day you will love that undesirable thing or individual. And we'll see it tonight. Connect. You can think now. It's a moment for you to think. As I'm talking, I want you guys to bring to heart. And we will utilize this later on, not directly, but indirectly. Why? Because we progress. And this is one of the points that we would like to bring before we get into the idea of love. Everything progresses. The law of progress that we study with the Spirit's book. We think that progress is something that we see us taking this beautiful blue chair or this computer and making it better. We usually think of progress of the materialistic part of our lives, right? Oh, look how we have progressed in our lives. But our feelings, our ideals, our ideas will also progress. But that's one of the problems that we still think of nowadays, think, oh, you know what? That progresses, but us, no. And sometimes we have that feeling because there's still a lot of things that we have done wrong in the past and we're still doing it over and over and over. But let's just go over this, because if we don't have this foundation and if we don't have this idea of progress well established in our minds and our hearts, it's going to be hard to understand what the progression of the feeling and what love truly is. We're not going to get to what truly love truly is. We can only have a glimpse of how to get there and an example, but we'll see how that goes. The various corporeal lives of the spirit are always progressive and never regressive, but the speed of its progress depends on the efforts that it makes to reach perfection. This is in the Spirit's book, in the introduction of it, okay? So everything is progressing. Everything is in a upslope, right? Question 778. Could humankind regress back to the natural state? This is now jumping into the studies of the law of progress in the Spirit's book. No, humankind must progress without ceasing, and they cannot return to the state of infancy. They progress because God has willed it. Believing that they could regress back to their primitive condition would be to deny the law of progress. Then, a couple questions later, does moral progress always follow intellectual progress? It is its consequence, but it does not always follow it immediately. Now, here is the beautiful explanation. And for us who are having trouble with the planet Earth right now, with a group of people or a family member, here's what the spirits say to the question, how can intellectual progress lead to moral progress? By making good and evil understandable. For then, humans can choose. The development of free will follows the development of intelligence and increases the responsibility of humans for their acts. We can actually spend a whole night onto this. Why? When we take this idea of reasoning the feeling, which is quite hard, right? Reasoning something that is abstract, like we're talking about love. To me, or to many of us, hopefully, is the only way that we can put into balance the right, the wrong. Now, which way you want to go? Because through this understanding, you will have the consequences of what happens with the right or the wrong, right? And then automatically you start studying the responsibility that you have for your choices. You can go wrong, right? You can go this road, but then you will have consequences. And with those consequences, there are responsibilities to fix it, right? To go back and say, I'm sorry, or to do something more appealing in the future. Why have to redo when you can do right the first time? It's not easy because we're not perfect yet. But this, again, is for us to understand that we are progressing, right? We are on the right path here. There's no way for us to go back now, at least in our relationships of our lives now, to knock on somebody's door with a bat and say, give me your house, give me your wife, or give me your husband, or give me your car. It happens. I'm not saying that. There are a lot of crazy things out there, but the way we already have organized ourselves with language, with laws, right? There's no way for us to do such a thing. We're already preparing ourselves to live we already live in a society, a well-organized society, that we don't do such a things that we have done when we were in the primitive years of our evolutionary path, right? So there is no way to go back. On this note, it's important also to bring the same scope or the same idea to the involvement of our spiritual being, right? Us, as thought and feeling as well. In this beautiful book that unfortunately is not in English yet, The Consoler or Consolador, the Spirit, Emmanuel also, responds to this question. Can there be intelligence without spiritual development? He says, let us say, better, human intelligence without sentiment development. Let us say it's better. Human intelligence without sentimental development. Because in this imbalance of sentiment and reason, the painful reality of the world now rests. The great error of human creatures was to exalt only intelligence, forgetting the legitimate values of the heart and the paths of life. This is exactly where we are right now. And this is a book that was brought through Chico Xavier many, many years ago. We embarked, and we still are, in this idea of only the material gets to be perfected. Our feelings, our thoughts, no, it's the same thing. And in fact, yes, for our great majority, people don't think about this. That the way I love today, it's not going to be the way I love tomorrow. The way I see each one of us today, it's definitely different from what I'm going to see tomorrow. Lose a loved one, and you will see people differently. Right? Unfortunate mothers who lose a kid, they will see everybody else's kid in a different way. Think about that, how that progresses. And I brought just two examples, unfortunate examples, that we see that through pain, we evolve. Does it have to be through pain? No, obviously not. Here's another example in the Gospel according to Spiritism, the spirit of Lazare saying that at their origin, humans have only instincts, right? At the primitive state, more advanced and corrupted, they have only sensations. More educated and purified, they have sentiments. The exquisite apex of sentiment is love. Not love in the ordinary sense of the term, but that inner sun that condenses, and joins at its ardent focal point all superhuman aspirations and revelations. It goes through changes. It evolves. And thank God, again, we're here. Our love is not based on the instincts anymore, that I am what I am based on my instincts. Instincts of do what? Survival, right? I need shelter. We all need these things, but we know how to coordinate ourselves that we're not taking from one another with no reason. Well, they were taking with reason because they want to protect themselves. There was a reason already, right? So it's even hard to understand them, you know? So it's something that we have to also take in consideration. This is not only for us, this group of people here tonight, because the same way we are evolving, everybody else is too. So the next time we have a situation with someone and years go by, you may look at it and say, perhaps that person changed. So I'm not going to go and talk to that individual if there is a new encounter. Hopefully, we want that new encounter, right? When something goes wrong, after everything cools down, a couple years or a couple months, a couple days, a couple hours at least, before we say something wrong, things have already changed, hopefully. When we go talk to the person, let's not go armed, right? Or let's not start thinking what the person will say or may say. Let's just be ourselves. Hopefully with our sentiments already purified, that we can face the situation again. We are evolving. Not only with the new watch or the new computer or the new car, but what we are inside of as well, right? Then Emmanuel comes and says, pure love is the Creator's reflection in all creatures. Love shines forth in everything, and everything throbs with the same vibrations of wisdom and beauty. Love is the very foundation of life, and justice is the basis of all law. It is the divine plasma enveloping all creation, the very breath of God permeating the universe. I want to take this right here and pose a couple questions. We study about ourselves. We gave Jesus as an example of this mirror of life, or of exchange of thoughts, right? And this is the one of the points of this chapter, is that Emmanuel reminds us of this evolutionary path that we were going through, and how it is then, and we're going to see this again, how it is for the exchange of thoughts and feelings, right? The mirror of the mind for higher spirits, the higher order of spirits. Think about it. What are they projecting? How is it that they exchange information? What quality of information When I say information, I like to say information because it's everything. It's not just the feeling of love that we're exchanging tonight. And it reminded me of this book, Evolution in Two Worlds, when André Luiz starts by saying, the divine plasma, the cosmic fluid is the divine plasma, energy of the creator or nervous force of the all-sage. And then he goes into talk about the architect of the universe. The direct helpers, if you will, the Christ-like spirits really projecting their feelings, right? Their vibration towards the universe, creating galaxies, creating planets. It blows my mind because, you know, these spirits, they're not really trying to understand love anymore. They are love. They have perfected themselves to a degree that they don't need it to speak anymore. It's just that exchange. It's just amazing. And I was thinking about this throughout this study, and it's just like, wow. And we're so still tangled with these little things of life. And I say this to myself. I'm not saying this to the group here tonight. Even for myself, it's hard. When you have an argument to say, oh, that's petty. No, that argument is valid. At least for me, you know, I want to make my point. I want to go ahead and say my word. Sometimes the final word has to be mine, or 99% of the time. Isn't it? I can't look at my wife right now because she will really, it's tough. It's not easy. But we have these examples to say, wait a minute. If they can do it, I can do it too. Now, how long it's going to take? It's going to take some time, guys. Hang in there. Let's help one another. That's why we're here. But there is a way out. And we'll see a little bit more of that. So it's good to have helpers, these visionary, not visionaries, these revolutionaries to become visionaries. That's what I would like to say, right? Because sometimes it's so hard. We get up in the morning, turn on the TV or turn on the radio, go on the phone or whatever, and we see some things that it's like, really? Do we have to go through this? Then you go back and say, wait a minute. I don't have to get tangled into this craziness. There's a way out. He continued by saying, love is the silent hope of heaven, awaiting the evolution of all principles and respecting the decision of all conscience. If anything, this slide right here, and we're going to kind of revisit later on, but it's the meat and potatoes of the chapter. By virtue of this blessing, each creature is assisted on its own level. The Lord loves the lowly worm and gives the worm many thousands of centuries to rise from the slime of the abyss, just as much as he loves the angel who represents him. The life fluid that nourishes the rose is the same that sustains the prickly thorn. The same tree that harbors the defenseless bird can also harbor the serpent with its deadly venom. In the space of the penitentiary, breathe with the same security the criminal who suffers the bars of pain and the correct administrator who guarantees him the order. Why is this important? Let's take one step at a time here. Love is the silent hope of heaven, awaiting the evolution of all principles and respecting the decision of all conscience. God is respecting us. Wait, God is respecting us. Yes, God is respecting our evolutionary path. How does it happen? It allows us to have our free will, exercise our free will. Why? Because when we exercise our free will, we automatically become responsible for our own acts. The same thing for someone who's a parent, has a kid. For so many years, you're responsible. Well, I would like to say for the rest of your life, you're responsible, right? Mothers and fathers, we feel that way, right? But there's a certain number of years that you are there, right? But a teenager, if they do something wrong in school, right? You're going to have to get to it and say, look, you dropped the ball. There will be consequences. I'm going to be here, but you're going to have to face the consequences. So are we, mother and father, so am I, right? But it's really on that individual. After a certain year of ages that it can respond to his or her own acts, right? It's going to be painful for the father, but it's going to be more direct on that individual. And it's the same thing with us. When God allows us to make these decisions, right, we also become responsible. It would be crude to believe that perhaps a spirit who is still transitioning in the primitive state of their evolutionary path, that God would apply the same correctiveness, if we can say that way, or I don't like to say punishment, as it would for someone who commits a crime today in our evolutionary path, when we have laws that tells us, don't do that, it's wrong. When we study such a beautiful science as well, that wouldn't be right. So justice kind of goes along with the level of responsibility that individual have. By virtue of all this blessing, each creature is assisted on its own level. Ask a mother who has a older and a younger child. Who needs more care? The younger child, right? Does that mean that that child, the older child, does not need any care or is not loved? No. But it's a different type of care. Does love change? Yes, it does. I'm not saying in the sense that you don't love the father or the mother doesn't love that child, but it's a different type of love. It's a different type of care. As we come down here, do you think that the higher minds, right, as we mentioned, the creators of the galaxies, of the planets, that God needs to be next to that individual, or the mentor, they have a mentor that has, oh, you need to do this now. You need to work this. No. They know. They already breathe. They know what happens. They have exercised so much that they don't need that direct care. But the care that they have is the same as the worm. But the worm needs several other mentors to assist. We have studied here through Andrea Luiz's collection as well, that depending on where you are, the forest, there are groups of spirits that are taking care of that location to develop. We look at a little animal, there are spirits assisting as well. Ourselves. We need a certain care, but we don't need the same care that, as we just mentioned, a primitive spirit is still in need of. So it progresses. This is another thing for us to remember, that if we apply this into our lives, if we bring this to our hearts, we need to love everyone, everything. How? That's up to each one of us. I'll give an example, something that crossed my mind, that, for example, if we're studying, or if we're more like a math person, right? How do you love writing? How do you love arts, different types of arts? Because one day you will have to develop those capabilities. Perhaps we already have developed a little bit, but now it's the time for us to do so in other areas, right? And we forget, so we give enough time to learn other areas. But some people, they just have an aversion for certain things in life that say, no, I would never be able to do this or that, right? We feel that way towards certain things. And then we are called sometimes to do things that we don't like. Start to look for the positive side. Start to look for how this development now, that is arduous sometimes, it's painful, will help you and others in the future. Take a class, and you will see how hard it is to learn something that you don't, number one, you don't deal with it every single day, right? When we start learning how to drive, it was hard. Especially if you had to learn on the stick shift. It was not easy. It wasn't pleasant. But once you do it and you do it well, it becomes second nature. And guess what? When we reincarnate again, hopefully, it's going to be worse because it's going to be all electronic. There will be no stick shift, right? It's going to be like, wait a minute, what do I do? But then the cell phones will help and, help us get in there. You see, my mind is still so it's kind of hard to see, but it's going to be it will be something else for us to learn. So we have to learn how to love. The same way that this love is provided to everyone. Whether you are loving something that is tough to learn, to love, whether it's something that you have to continue to love, to develop even that feeling, right, towards that someone that you already love, already like that individual, we have to make sure that we are exercising this. And we will see again down the road what this means. We repeat that love is the reflection of God, our Father, who is compassionate towards all and who does not violate our free will. Because of his infinite love for all, he determines that according to our deeds, every conscience is always under the law of responsibility. Again, because he loves us, we are allowed unlimited time to walk the path of ascension to him. Whenever we thoughtlessly choose the ways of evil, he allows us to eternity itself to return to goodness, and that is his unchanging rule. Just one road. And here we are, marching, right? With our free will not being violated, because whatever we choose, our responsibility towards our acts will counterbalance. Just like the economy. I like to bring the economy as an example because we go through this ups and downs, right? Ups and downs. The government comes and they do something for, when I say the government, the White House come and say, let's do this, right? And then the feds, they come and say, let's do that. And they bring it to balance again. If it goes too low, right? Everybody's buying, things start heating up, it needs to slow down, right? When it gets up there that nobody's buying, that needs to kind of bring things down. So if people start to buy again, it goes up and down. Same thing with our bodies, right? Homeostasis. Every time we eat something, our different systems start working together to bring balance, right? To take from the food whatever we need. So the balances of life. We do something wrong through our acts, we're responsible for it. The same way we do something good, we're also responsible. Another way for us to help ourselves evolve mentally and spiritually is to think that we don't only do negative things, we do positive things, right? If we get up in the morning and think, oh, I'm only going to do bad things today, who does that? Nobody does, hopefully not. But most of the time we get up in the morning and say, I'm going to go ahead and, we complain, I have to do this again, but we go and do it. It's a good thing. Hopefully tomorrow we're not going to complain. We're going to say, you know what? Whew, I got to go. We got to do it. And then the following day, you don't even say anything. You just do it willingly. So let's evolve on that thought as well. We are doing good things. The person next to you, they are doing good things. Again, because he loves us, we are allowed unlimited time to walk the path of ascension to him. Do we need unlimited time? Yes, we do. Can we shorten it? Yes, we can. Can we make it faster? Certainly we can. Yes. And we'll see a little bit more. But it depends on our choice. It depends how we want to evolve, right? In the Spirit's book, what is the most perfect standard that God has offered to humankind as a guide and model? The answer is right there, Jesus. Let's take our example that has been brought to us, that has been given by God to us to ascend, right? Or to make a connection and say, oh, I want to be like this guy. And there are many higher minds that have walked through the earth, and they're still assisting us from the other side, right? right? We were talking about Emmanuel here, Andrea Luis, Joanna De Angelis, many others, Mother Teresa that we have watched movies here, right? Many, many others, Gandhi, you name it, right? That we can mirror ourselves and say, I want to be like this individual. I want to conquer something. Not exactly do the same thing that that person did because that was his or her path, but I want to be somebody who's responsible, dedicated as that individual. Or love the one that we have. But Jesus is right here, setting the bar up there. Just like he said, you can do what I did and much more, right? But I want to ask you guys to think with me here. In this passage of John 11, verse 35, Jesus cried. This is the actual moment when Jesus goes to see Lazarus and the sisters, Mary, right? And Martha, they were crying because Lazarus had passed for 3 or 4 days already. I don't remember now. And he cried. So if Jesus is an evolved, or was then an evolved spirit, and was the architect of Earth, planet Earth, as we learned through Spiritism, why did he cry? I was talking with Yasko the other day about this, and it's very intriguing. Especially talking to Yasko because she likes to ask questions. She likes to, right? She'll probably watch this again and she'll be like, really, Leo? And we were. And I want to say this in a good way because it's nice for us to question these things. Why do you think Jesus cried? And he knew that he was going to get, if you go to the Bible and you go through the whole John 11, you will see through this passage that he brings Lazarus out. He lived. He knew what was going to happen, but he cried. Why do you think? Give you an example. Not example, another reminder. He cried after he saw that everyone was crying. He cried after he saw that the sisters were crying, that they were troubled as well. The way we think is that if Jesus knew what was going to happen, what he was capable to do, and others as well, did he have a need to cry? We probably will say no, there's no need for it. But the elevation of his sentiments, the love that he had for those people, he cried with them. He exemplified that it's okay to cry. It's okay to share a tough moment with someone and be troubled. Be troubled in the sense that, look, I understand what you're going through. And this is just beautiful. The other passage that we were talking with Yasko is the passage, if I'm not mistaken, when we were talking, was that it wasn't this passage, I got to remember now, but it was this idea of crying as well. That the level of understanding before the responsibility that he had with everyone else, with humanity in general, right? He had a group of people who were willing, who had a desire to change and to help others. But they were rude. Rude in the sense that ignorant, right? They were really very tough individuals. But they were willing to do something. And they did. Peter, Matthew, John. Many of them carried on. Martha, Mary. And he cried when he saw that it was going to be troubling for those individuals to get out of the situation that they were inserted in and do something better of their lives and help others become something as well. Sorry. So it's important for us to analyze these moments and say, Jesus evolved in that moment, in that situation as well. So when we see somebody cry, it's not that we're going to go, oh my God, I want to cry with this individual. No, but be there for the person. Connect with that individual. When we see something that is going on with the planet, as we have mentioned here, we become a citizen of the universe, not only the planet, and we say, how can I help? What is my attitude tomorrow or from this moment on that will help me improve that situation that is happening in China? Because I don't want that to happen here. Not that you're going to say, oh, whatever happens there, happens there. No. but you don't want it to happen here. Or you can prevent from happening here, wherever you are, county, state, country, whatever. The involvement of the sentiment. This is a beautiful example right here. This is the reason why Jesus, again, Emmanuel on the book Thought and Life, the divine example whom God sent to earth to enlighten us, always takes the love of the Father as his source of inspiration. Jesus loved without expecting to be loved, and while helping others, never had any thought of being recompensed in return. He just did it. And they didn't understand, and we still question why Jesus cried if he was so elevated, right? But it's this feeling that we don't understand yet. It's the love that we're not there yet. But here's a beautiful example. Emmanuel continues by saying, in bringing Jesus as the example, on descending to the human sphere out of love, Jesus humbled himself out of love, helping others, and suffering out of love, passed through the world with his thoughts raised up to the celestial Father, reflecting his wisdom and mercy. And in order that the thoughts and lives of all of us should reflect his footsteps of light, he left us in the name of God his unforgettable command, love one another as I have loved you. Set the bar pretty high, right? It's all the way up here, but it's doable. Exercising it, giving ourselves more, understanding the others, look for ways to improve who we are. And this is the moment that we can then come to two reminders that we'd like to share of how to love more, how to be more lovable. There are two things. First of all, self-awareness. What is the most effective means of improving ourselves from the Spirit's book, in this life, and for resisting the draw of evil? We have seen this before. A sage of antiquity has told you, know thyself. Why is this important? Why is knowing thyself important? How do we getting inside of us will make me love more and be more lovable? Something I came across recently from Harry Kramer, the professor of leadership, and this is an insight from excerpt from Kellogg Insight, Kellogg School of Management of Northwestern University. It brings this idea of 8 daily self-examination questions, and this is in the business arena. This has nothing to do with spirituality. This has nothing to do with spiritism in the sense of what we learn, to connect with God. This is a reminder for someone to connect with his or herself and become a better leader. Look at the things that he mentions. What did I say I was going to do today in all dimensions of my life? What did I actually do today? What I am proud of? What am I not proud of? How did I lead people? How did I follow people? If I live today over again, what would I have done differently? And eighth, if I have tomorrow, and I am actually aware that someday I won't, based on what I learned today, what will I do tomorrow in all dimensions of my life? This is a reminder for leaders to do this self-analysis daily and become a better individual, become a better leader, become a better manager. I like to use the word leader because there's a huge difference from leaders to managers. We're not talking about managing transactions or the things that we do in our daily lives. Yeah, we have to brush your teeth, we have to eat, we have to drive, right? And in the business world, it becomes transactions. I'm talking about how do I lead my life? The thoughts, the feelings. Have I made a difference in someone else's life today, right? And this is important for us to get to this self-awareness, because for us to understand who we are, when he asks, what am I proud of? What am I not proud of, right? What is he talking about? Our beliefs. What is important for me? And once we do this evaluation, it may sound a little bit egotistic, right? That we're doing for ourselves. But the consequences of this evaluation is not only for yourself, it's for others as well. Because the way you evaluate yourself, you're opening yourself as well to help others evaluate themselves. And before you judge, you will know that the person is also in their transformation, in their ascension to become a better individual as well. So it's important for us to become self-aware. What are my strengths? What can I do? I can cook better than my husband, than my wife, or I can clean better than this individual. And I'm talking about the petty things that sometimes we encounter at home or at work. You know, this person does this better than I do. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and allow that individual or help that individual become even better. So and so, why don't you do this test because you do so well? Teach me how to do it because perhaps tomorrow you're not here, right? You may go do something else, but I think that you should develop this area. And then we look at it and say, but I do this well. It becomes a partnership. One is doing one thing, the other is doing the other. Sometimes you have to kind of exchange a little bit and do the things that you don't do so well yet to also learn, but it becomes a partnership. Every place we go, it becomes a partnership. So self-awareness, get to know yourself. Use some of these questions. Develop the questionnaire that you would like to develop. This is how you will be a better lover in a good way. Someone who loves more effectively or well. And then also, remember this other side. We need love. We need to be loved. We need to belong, right? That's one of the reasons we have so much trouble nowadays. People don't believe that they belong to something. They trouble their minds to question what other things or other people are thinking about me. It's important to think, but the more you give thought to it, you're not going to find out until you get out there and love and do your part so they can receive the same. The second thing that we forget quite a bit, respect. Self-awareness and respect. This is hard because to respect someone, and I'm not going to put the chair or something material to exemplify this because it's easy to respect the chair. It's on the way. I'll take it out of the way, right? But we cannot do with thoughts. We cannot do that with feelings sometimes. We cannot do that with people. We cannot take that individual that is in front of us, troubling us, and say, okay, put it over here. That's it, done. No. We have to face it. We have to treat it. We have to make it better. And most of the time, it's on us. It's not on the individual that is creating the trouble. It's not. Because you can see it clearly what's going to happen down the road. You already weighted the situation, and you know that there will be tough consequences. Same thing, again, we bring the parents to the picture, right? You know that the kid is about to do something wrong. And it's like, oh, I already said it 3 million times. So now it's time to let it happen, quote unquote, and let it deal with the situation. Respect. Look what we find in the law, studying the law of society in the Spirit's book. Question 877. Does the necessity of living in society impose any special obligations on humankind? Yes, and the first of all is that of respecting the rights of others. Those who respect such rights will always be just. In your world, where so many do not practice the law of justice, everyone resorts to reprisals, and that is what causes trouble and confusion in our society, in your society. Social life bestows rights and imposes reciprocal duties. Through the example of respecting the other individual, you're already demanding the same respect back. If it doesn't happen automatically, it will happen later on. Because if we are proposing respect, later on, that individual will be responsible for that action that you just proposed at that time. You received, you got to pay it back the same way. It's hard to understand because our minds are limited, but we have a beautiful reminder with Spiritism, reincarnation. The same respect that we saw God presented towards us, our free will, we're being called to do the same thing. And that's the part that becomes very hard. That if we can't love yet, let us respect. Let us give ourselves the ability to respect that individual. Later on, these two foundations will come together and become love. Not yet. We understand. But let us respect. Because everybody's ascending. This is the part that becomes very hard for all of us. We bring again the parents. How do we think it happens? It gets to a point where the parents have to respect the choices that the daughter, the son-in-law, the daughter-in-law, right? The same way the parents also have to respect, we have to respect the choices of our parents. We use this idea or this example because the self society, right, the family, is where we start. And Jesus gave this beautiful example as well. Didn't leave the house early ages, right, to do whatever. No, he stayed in the house. Exemplifying that that's where we have to be and where we have to strengthen our difficulties, not difficulties, or eliminate our difficulties, strengthen our abilities, capabilities to become someone that can go and insert ourselves into society and make it better. And that's a beautiful example to all of us. If anything, folks, if anything, I leave you guys with this beautiful passage from 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4, 5, and 6, and 7. When Paul writes to the Corinthians, love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. This is I would say, a small exemplification of this chapter. Studying what love is not at least gives us the ability to check off the things that we are doing poorly, to check off the things that will not give us a better future or the ones around us as well. Always think of this teaching of love that Emmanuel, or let us take this teaching that Emmanuel brings to us as a way to project ourselves better, right? To make better choices. Because the foolish things that we have been doing, no more. It serves us no purpose whatsoever. So I hope that as we go home with this message tonight, with the exemplification of how higher minds are projecting themselves in the universe, not only because the higher minds are not talking with other higher minds, they're talking to the universe. They're not past buyers, as Joanna D'Angeli mentioned. They know their capabilities. They are self-aware, and they respect everyone else's free will. We can do the same thing. We don't wish anybody a better resolutions or what we will do, what we won't eat, how we will exercise, but we wish everyone to be a better individual than we were yesterday. Because that alone is our development, is our understanding of love, and we need to respect. Seeing something negative today or tomorrow, think about it. What is the evolutionary path of that individual? If you see something positive, do the same thing. How did that individual get there? When I say something positive, please, it's not to look at the tabloids or say, oh my gosh, this person is rich. No, it doesn't. Let us really analyze the good things of life and say, he struggled, yeah, she worked a whole lot, but I can do the same thing. I can even do more. it's a calling for all of us to live better lives. Wishing everybody a happy, really happy holidays to all. And let us make this end of year, closing 2018, remembering that thought and life, right? Everything that we do, it belongs to us. We're responsible for. We're not responsible for what others are sending towards us. But we can look at it and say, wait a minute. Before it reaches my heart, let me mold it a little bit. Let me mold it a little bit before it hurts me, or I allow myself to hurt. But before somebody sends something, ask yourself, what are you throwing out there so that that person is throwing that something else towards you? Maybe we may not have the answers at this time, but it could be from issues of the past, and now we need to redo it. Okay? We open for questions, comments. I know, where's Yasko, right? So they're throwing a chip, Paula.
It's like a reputation. Thank you. I agree with you. The conversation about love is endless, and how we even use that word or how we feel it. I think what I was left with looking at Happy Holidays, it was just a thought. The word peace has always been important to me, and it may be that I grew up in the 60s where we all created the famous circle sign with them. And it's still happening. We're still searching for peace, but to me the thought just came, I need to be at peace with myself. And there's so many simple ways that I can catch myself being mad at myself or wishing something else happened. But as I concentrate more on not doing that and not creating that energy, life seems to be easier to live. And therefore I extend that peace to others and give them the space to go through it too.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, and believe me, I went through several questions of what to propose and what to share with one another as far as the guides or guidelines for us to love better. Peace was definitely something that that crossed my mind, but it's still, in a way, our own way to analyze peace, or what is to be in peace. How do we get into peace, right? So it's definitely hard. It's not easy to talk about this abstract idea still for us, right? But there is one thing that I would like to remind everyone. As much as it is abstract, we have to exercise it. As much as the love is still, in a way, primitive and compared to the higher minds that we mentioned, we have to make it happen. Love in action, charity, as we learn with Spiritism, right? You have to make it happen. Whether it is through looking someone in the eye, saying something nice, whether it is to give alms, to help, to be a good citizen, to say no for the things that is hurting us already, and to say enough is enough, right? I have the ability, yes, to help thousands of people like Divaldo does, Chico did. We all have that capability. But what about the small things that we're being called to do and we're not calling because we're so worried about, oh, I want to be this individual, right? Sometimes we think, oh, giving the water at the center, we already have mentioned this here, or doing this at this location. So small, but you are part of the universe. That little bit that you're doing right now, yes, other millions of spirits could do it, but you are doing it. Make it happen and be proud of it. Sometimes, this is so small. No, it's big. For someone, that is big, that is huge, right? And as Joana de Angela says, we own part of this universe. We make it, right, happen. Anybody else? Ball again.
I'm just, responding to your saying abstract thoughts are really hard to explain or get a hold of. And to me, that's where the joy of the heart comes in. And I like the progression you talked about from sensation to sentiment and Jesus weeping. Because our minds can't really deliver us totally where we need to go.
Right.
We want to watch our thoughts, but we need to be aware of our body sensations and feelings. And that's not easy because we're not raised to do that. We're really raised to be somewhat disconnected to feelings. And when they do pop up, they may be so big we have trouble managing them.
Managing it, yes.
But just in little ways. And the other thing, you know, came out of this book is how these are all vibrations. Like just when you say the word peace, I feel okay. I feel settled and calm. Or when we say love from the heart, not abstractly.
True. Thank you. Oh, she's watching. She's watching. Okay. So, Yasko asked, Art of Loving by Eric Fromm. It is an art. Why don't we practice and master it like any other art? Good question, Yasko. Good question. This is also another question that I proposed that it came to mind as we were studying this. Why do we want the negative for ourselves? Why do we shorten ourselves? Right? Why do we... it's talking to me, Daniel. I don't know what to do. I'm still on the old ages of the iPhones. I think I pressed Siri there. Why do we expect less for ourselves, right? What is the syndrome again? I forget now. And recently, what's her name? Michelle Obama mentioned about it. No, that you feel that you don't deserve to be at a certain location or to do or to receive something. I forget now that syndrome. It's very common, and and a lot of people don't know they have it, but they feel that way. It's not a lack of self-esteem. It's to believe that perhaps you work so hard, to be someone, but you still don't believe that you conquer, that you are that. I forget the name of the syndrome now, but a lot of people have this issue, and they don't know that they have this issue. And it just becomes enormous that people stop themselves to become even better or to develop themselves more because they believe that, okay, this is it, right? Why do we feel this way? Self-love. It's this idea of this self-improvement that we don't allow ourselves to dive in and say, let me see who I am. Let me see, yes, the mistakes that I have done, but also let me ask myself, what can I do tomorrow? That is the only answer that I can give to Yasko's questions on this, how to develop this art a little bit faster, right? To get to know really who you are, to get to know your core values. This is something else that we learn as well in the business arena now is, what are the values of the company? What are your values? Does it match, right? What is important for you? Came across a very interesting British leader, giving talks as well, when she was called to talk in certain Middle Eastern countries, that she actually had to wear the, what do you call again? The jibba, the burqa, right? And people question, are you going to do this? Are you going to really put yourself through this? What's the matter? What's the problem? This is how they are. I'd like to bring the best of myself, and that's not going to stop me. That's not going to stop me. She didn't. She went and she did her job. Despite the fact that other people condemned or didn't think it was right, she did her part. So it was really refreshing to say, this is not what is going to define me. The physical body, right? The way I look, the way I'll present myself. I'll do the best to present myself well, but if people don't like it, it's up to that individual. Again, us taking what people are throwing at us and saying, no, wait a minute, I don't need this. There's more to it. And I'm willing to help you understand the more, but it's up to the person also. Here's a question again, and I'll let you give the final comments, Paula. Think of the person that you love. Does the self-awareness, the idea of respect, the example that we saw, the evolution of the sentiments help love that person more? Think of the things or the person or the situation that you don't love yet, that you're struggling with. When you do these analyses, will it help for you to love that situation tomorrow? Don't answer yet. Because I know now it's not going to give you that power that you need, the empowerment that you need. It won't. It takes time. But I guarantee you that if not in a week or so, if you do this self-analysis, if you start analyzing the respect that you have or to establish before this situation, you will say, you know what, let me rethink about this. If not in a week, a month, a year, a century, but one day we will have to face it. That's a scary thought. So we need to take our baby steps, but we need to do it now so we don't linger on the eternity that we have mentioned here. But think about that. Final comment and we'll end.
I just keep thinking as you're talking. I think it's thinking, I think it's doing, and I also have to use the word think it's being.
Okay.
So to develop the art of loving, it's really a practice of being. Mm-hmm. So the self-analysis, the self-knowledge, the intention is all very important. I'm also thinking the mindfulness movement is contributing a lot. When I wake up in the morning, once I say my prayer of gratefulness that I'm here for another day, spending a minute on my heart being filled with love and going out into the day. And then if I had a regular job, I'd be using my smartphone. And maybe on the hour, not only would an icon show up to tell me to breathe or to walk, but there would be a heart. And I could ask myself, am I now coming from a place of love?
Wow. That's a good... Maybe we should send that idea to Apple and Google to, besides the breathing, because the watches, they do that. And there are apps as well for you to drink water, for you to stand up. I used to stand up a whole lot for the watch, and this is a plug-in now for the Apple Watch. But to do that, to send a heart, right? Are you thinking about love? Are you... Or maybe help one another. Let's do that. Love everyone, right? You know, and send that to one another so that we have these reminders. Believe me, you never know how you're going to help, right? Because sometimes when we were in despair and we received a message for someone or a call for someone, you don't even go through the mentioning the problem, but just to hear the other person or just to kind of connect with something else, it helps, right? So that is definitely a great reminder. It's this idea of being. Right? It's this idea of practicing. In a way, is the loving in action that we mentioned, is the charity that we always remind one another here as well. So, again, it has been a journey, and I believe, and this is giving my personal thought, it's not easy because Emmanuel himself and Chico and everyone involved with the work that was done to put this book together, these minds are just way ahead of us, right? Many of the encounters that I had with people who lived with Chico and the things that we hear about Chico is that he just emanated this feeling, this amazing feeling that everybody wanted to stay with him, right? That you don't want to leave. And we feel that sometimes here at the SSB, some places that we go, some of our friends. Imagine living this every single moment of our lives. It's doable. It's doable. So we hope that the teachings that we received can incite us and really give us the boost to pick up the book and read. Use me as a point of reference to perhaps try to understand it, because I won't be able to tell you what Emmanuel is really trying to say, but it, you know, at least we can discuss it, and we can help one another. This coming year, we are already through some insights. We already decided that we will actually be working on the book Plenitude by Joanna de Angelis. It's going to be another journey, because the book actually talks about suffering, but at the same time talking about suffering in a revolutionary way, to see it as a way to progress and ways to suffer less, because we're still on a trial planet, right? Where we're an expiation planet, trial and expiation planet, going through a transition, and these are the moments that we're facing a lot of difficult things. As far as we think this way, and everything is going that way, and those things bothers us, right? So it's going to be another journey. We will try to keep the same way, in a little slower pace, where the book we will be able to go ahead and do at least one chapter per month instead of 3 chapters. But it's a little bit longer, so just bear with us and read the book. Pretty soon we will have available. We invite everyone to read the book. It's in Portuguese. You can actually find the PDF copies in Portuguese for free online, and you can read it, but we will obviously present it here in English. So excited for that as well. Excited for 2019, what's going to bring us, and happy holidays. Thank you. Yes, so we would like just to finalize with our prayer, and we would like to